Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going behind the scenes business analysis training.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we've got lecture notes chapters from a textbook, even some pop quiz questions.
Oh, wow.
Like we're sneaking you right into the classroom.
I like it.
Whether you're thinking about getting certified yourself or brushing up on your skills or just curious how this stuff works.
Mm-hmm.
This deep dive is your shortcut to understanding the core concepts of business analysis.
I have to say, getting a peek at these training materials is fascinating. It really takes me back
Yeah,
to when I was first learning all of this.
right. It reminds us that even the experts started somewhere.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So let's jump in. The first thing you absolutely need to know in business analysis is the BACCM,
Okay.
the Business Analysis Core Concept Model. It's like the foundation of the entire house.
Yeah, it's the framework that helps you understand how all the pieces of a business fit together and how changes in one area can impact everything else.
Right.
The BACCM focuses on 6 core concepts: changes, needs, solutions, stakeholders' value, and context.
Okay, so imagine a spider web, right? You touch one strand and the whole web vibrates. That's business. Change the price of a product and it impacts your customers, your competitors, your profits, the whole web.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
The BACCM helps you see those connections.
Okay.
So, for example, say you're a business analyst working on a project to improve customer service.
Mm-hmm.
You'd use the BACCM to analyze the current state. What are the customer needs? What are the existing processes? Who are the stakeholders? Then you define the future state. How can we improve those processes to better meet customer needs and deliver more value? And you always have to keep in mind the context, things like the company's culture, their resources, and those external factors.
I'm already seeing how powerful this framework is.
Yeah.
So once we understand those core concepts, where do we go from there?
Well, that brings us to Chapter 6 of the Training Materials Strategy Analysis.
Okay.
This is where we learn to think strategically about business change.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding the why behind a change and crafting a plan to achieve it. It's like being a business detective.
Ooh, I love a good mystery. So give me the rundown. What are the steps involved in cracking this business case?
The chapter breaks it down into 4 key tasks: analyze the current state, define the future state, assess risks, and define the change strategy.
Got it.
Let's start with that first one, analyzing the current state. It's like giving the business a thorough checkup.
Okay, so where do we even begin? It's like walking into a room full of puzzle pieces. Where do you start putting it together?
Well, you need to gather information about the business's needs, its structure, its culture, its processes, technology, policies, all the vital signs. I remember early in my career, I was working with a company that wanted to implement a new software system.
Okay.
On paper, it was a great solution,
Yeah.
but I quickly realized that the company's culture was very resistant to change.
Oh,
People were used to doing things a certain way,
right.
and they weren't keen on adopting a new system.
I bet that made things tricky.
It did.
So you're saying that even the best solution can fail if it doesn't align with the company's culture.
Absolutely. That's why understanding the current state is so crucial. In that case, I had to work closely with the stakeholders
Yeah.
to address their concerns, demonstrate the benefits of the new system, and provide training and support to help them adapt.
Mm-hmm.
It took more time and effort, but in the end, we were able to successfully implement the system and improve the company's operations.
That's a great example of how business analysis isn't just about the technical stuff. It's about people, too.
It is?
And speaking of people, one concept that really jumps out from the training materials is core capabilities.
Right.
What exactly are those?
Core capabilities are what a company does best, what sets it apart from the competition. It's like a company's superpower.
Oh, okay.
Think about a company like Apple. Their core capability is design and innovation.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes their product so desirable.
Okay, so figuring out those core capabilities is key when analyzing a business.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to recommend a change that weakens a company's superpower.
Exactly. It's about understanding what makes the company tick, what drives its success.
Right.
You want to make sure that any changes you propose enhance those core capabilities, not diminish them.
Okay, so we've gathered all this information about the current state, we understand the company's core capabilities, and now we're ready to think about the future. How do we go about defining that desired future state?
That's where we move on to the next task, defining the future state. If analyzing the current state is like taking a snapshot of where you are, defining the future state is like painting a vivid picture of where you want to be.
I like that. It's like setting a destination for our business journey, right? But instead of just saying, I want to be successful, you've got to get specific.
It's about envisioning the desired outcome of the change initiative and articulating what success will look like. It involves outlining business goals and objectives, the scope of the solution space, any constraints, assumptions, and the potential value to be gained.
The training materials really emphasize those SMART objectives,
Yeah,
specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. It's like setting a fitness goal. Instead of saying, I want to get in shape, you say, I want to run a 5K in under 30 minutes by the end of the year.
exactly. SMART objectives provide clarity, focus, and a way to track progress. And it's not just for business goals. Think about a change you want to make in your own life, maybe learning a new skill.
Right.
Can you frame it as a SMART objective? It suddenly becomes much more manageable and achievable.
All right, so we've got a clear picture of where we want to go.
Yeah.
But as we all know, the path to success isn't always smooth. What about those unexpected detours and roadblocks along the way?
That's where assessing risks comes in. It's like checking the weather forecast before you head out on a road trip.
Uh-huh.
You want to be prepared for potential storms.
So we've got our destination in mind, our route planned out.
Yeah.
But we're also packing an umbrella just in case.
Exactly. This chapter helps you identify and analyze potential risks by considering their likelihood, impact, and timing. It encourages you to think through different scenarios. What if our main supplier goes out of business? What if a new technology disrupts our industry? How would those events affect our project? What can we do to prevent them or at least minimize the damage?
So it's about being proactive and having a plan B.
Yes.
And maybe even a plan C ready to go. That's smart. And I bet this applies to more than just business, right? Thinking about potential risks can help us navigate all sorts of challenges in life.
Absolutely. Whether you're making a career move, starting a new project, or even just planning a vacation, understanding potential risks can save you a lot of headaches down the road.
Okay, so we've analyzed the present, we've envisioned the future, and we've identified those potential roadblocks. Now what? It's time to actually chart the course.
That's where defining the change strategy comes in. It's about developing a roadmap for how you'll move from the current state to that desired future state. We consider factors like organizational readiness, cost timelines, and how well the strategy aligns with the business objectives.
So we're moving from the what to the how. It's not enough to just know where we want to go. We need to figure out the best way to get there.
Right. And one of the key concepts here is transition states and release planning.
Okay?
It's about breaking down a large-scale change into smaller, more manageable phases. You don't climb a mountain in one giant leap, right? You set up base camps along the way.
Ah, so it's about creating a series of steps, each with its own objectives and milestones. Instead of trying to do everything at once, you break it down into smaller climbs. That makes the whole process less daunting, especially for those of us who aren't exactly expert mountain climbers.
Exactly. And it allows for adjustments along the way. Maybe you encounter unexpected terrain or the weather changes. You adapt your plan based on the circumstances.
This is making me think about how I approach my own goals. Sometimes I get overwhelmed for the big picture,
Yeah?
but if I break it down into smaller steps, it feels much more achievable.
That's the beauty of it. This concept can be applied to anything from launching a new product to developing a new skill or even achieving a personal fitness goal. It's about making progress in a sustainable and strategic way rather than trying to do too much too soon.
Okay, I'm feeling motivated to break down some goals right now, but before I get ahead of myself, let's talk about how we know if all this planning and strategizing is actually working. That's where the next chapter comes in, right? Solution evaluation.
You got it. We've put all this work into planning and implementing change, but how do we know if it's actually making a difference? That's what we'll be diving into next.
That's what we'll be diving into next, solution evaluation.
Right, we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about how to evaluate whether that change is actually working.
Okay.
It's like checking in on our progress, making sure we're still on the right track, and making adjustments if needed.
Right. It reminds me of those GPS systems that reroute you if you miss a turn or hit traffic.
Exactly. And Chapter 8 of the training materials dives deep into this process. It outlines 5 key tasks: measure solution performance, analyze performance measures, assess solution limitations, assess enterprise limitations, and recommend actions to increase solution value.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. Let's start with that first one, measure solution performance. How do we even begin to measure whether a solution is successful?
It starts with defining what success looks like. What are the specific goals and objectives we're trying to achieve with this solution? And how can we measure those objectives in a way that's meaningful and reliable?
Right, because success can mean different things to different people. We need to be clear about what we're measuring and why. The training materials emphasize using both quantitative and qualitative measures. Can you explain the difference?
Of course, quantitative measures are things you can count or measure numerically, like website traffic, sales figures, or customer satisfaction scores. Think of it like taking a survey where people rate their satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 5.
Okay, so those are the hard numbers, but what about those qualitative measures?
Qualitative measures are more about understanding people's experiences, perceptions, and opinions. It's about getting a feel for things that are harder to quantify, like employee morale, customer loyalty, or the impact of a change on company culture. Think of it like conducting interviews or focus groups to gather feedback and insights.
So it's like getting the full story, not just the numbers, but the human element as well. And the training materials suggest that having a mix of both quantitative and qualitative measures gives you a more balanced and comprehensive view.
Exactly. It's like using a variety of tools to examine a patient. You wouldn't rely solely on a thermometer to diagnose an illness, would you? You'd also want to ask the patient how they're feeling, observe their symptoms, and maybe run some tests. It's about getting a holistic view.
I like that analogy. So once it's defined our measures, what's next? We actually have to collect the data right.
Right. And the training materials get pretty specific about this process, talking about techniques like statistical sampling. It sounds complicated, but it's really just a way of gathering data from a representative group rather than trying to survey every single person or analyze every single transaction.
So instead of draining the entire lake to see how many fish are in it, we take a small sample from different areas and use that to estimate the overall population.
Exactly. It's a way of saving time and resources while still getting reliable data.
Okay, so we've collected all this data. Now what? Time to break out the spreadsheets and get our data analysis on.
You got it. Analyze performance measures is the next key task. It's where we dig into the data looking for patterns, trends, and insights that help us understand how the solution is performing. Are we hitting our targets? Are things improving over time?
So we're looking for those ha moments, those nuggets of insight that tell us what's working and what's not.
Exactly. The training materials highlight several key areas to focus on during the analysis. Solution performance versus desired value. Are we meeting our goals? Risks, have any of the risks we identified materialized? Trends, is the solution improving or declining over time? Accuracy, is our data reliable? Performance variances, are there any unexpected discrepancies in the data?
There's a lot to consider. It's like being a detective, examining all the clues to piece together the story. And speaking of detectives, I'm curious about those performance variances you mentioned. What are those and why are they important?
Performance variances are essentially differences between the actual performance of a solution and what was expected or planned. For example, maybe a new marketing campaign is driving a lot of traffic to the website, but those visitors aren't converting into customers. That's a variance that needs to be investigated.
Ah, so it's like noticing that the engine of a car is revving really high, but the car isn't moving very fast. Something's not quite right.
Exactly. Identifying those variances helps us pinpoint areas where the solution is exceeding expectations and areas where it's falling short. And then we can dig deeper to understand why those variances are occurring. Is it a problem with the solution itself? Or are there external factors at play?
Okay, so we've analyzed the data, we've identified those variances, and now it's time to put on our problem-solving hats and figure out what's going on. That's where we assess solution limitations, right?
You got it. Assess solution limitations is the third key task in solution evaluation. It's about taking a critical look at the solution itself and identifying any inherent limitations that might be hindering its performance.
So we're looking for internal factors that might be causing those variances we observed in the data, like maybe the new software system isn't as user-friendly as we thought, or maybe there's a bottleneck in a particular process.
Exactly. The training materials emphasize understanding how different parts of a solution interact with each other because one weak link can affect the whole chain. It's like troubleshooting a complex machine. You need to understand how all the gears and levers work together to identify the source of a problem.
This is making me think about how important it is to involve the people who are actually using the solution in this process. They're the ones who can tell you firsthand what's working, what's not, and where the pain points are.
Absolutely. Their insights are invaluable. But sometimes those limitations aren't due to internal factors within the solution itself. They might stem from external factors within the broader organizational environment.
Ah, so it's not always about the solution itself. Sometimes the problem is the context in which the solution is operating.
Exactly. And that brings us to the fourth key task, assess enterprise limitations. It's where we zoom out and look at the big picture, identifying any organizational factors that might be hindering the solution's success.
So this is where we consider things like company culture, organizational structure, resources, policies, and processes.
Exactly. The training materials highlight several areas to consider, including enterprise culture assessment, stakeholder impact analysis, organizational structure change, and operational assessment. It's about recognizing that a solution doesn't operate in a vacuum. It's part of a larger ecosystem, and its effectiveness can be influenced by a wide range of external factors.
That makes perfect sense. It's like planting a seed in the wrong type of soil. Even if the seed is healthy and strong, it won't thrive if the environment isn't conducive to its growth.
That's a great analogy. So by taking this broader perspective, by assessing both the solution's limitations and the enterprise limitations, we gain a much deeper understanding of why a solution might not be performing as well as we'd hoped.
Okay, so we've done all this analysis. We've identified the internal and external factors that might be hindering the solution's success. Now what? Where do we go from here?
That's where the final key task comes in. Recommend actions to increase solution value. This is where we take all those insights we've gathered and turn them into actionable recommendations for improvement.
So it's not just about finding the problems, it's about proposing solutions.
Exactly. We're like doctors who have diagnosed the patient and are now prescribing the treatment plan. The training materials emphasize that these recommendations should be clear, concise, and well supported by the data and insights we've gathered through our evaluation process.
This is where the business analyst really gets to shine, using their analytical skills and expertise to guide the organization towards a better outcome.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Chapter 8, Solution Evaluation. We've explored the 5 key tasks involved in this crucial phase of business analysis, and we've seen how a holistic approach considering both quantitative and qualitative data, internal and external factors, is essential for making informed decisions.
This has been a fascinating journey. I'm already starting to see how these concepts can be applied not just to business projects, but to all sorts of challenges in life.
Absolutely, these are valuable tools for anyone who wants to understand, improve, and strategically navigate change.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the foundational concepts of the BACCM to the intricacies of solution evaluation. I'm feeling energized and ready to put some of these insights into practice.
Me too. It's been a pleasure diving deep into these training materials with you.
And to our listeners, we'll wrap up our exploration of business analysis with some final thoughts and insights. So stick around.
Welcome back to
It's a deep dive. We've explored so much about business analysis today.
Yeah, we have.
From the core concepts of that BACCM
Right.
to the detailed process of evaluating solutions.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah, it has.
Through these training materials, I'm
Yeah.
always impressed by the depth
Yeah.
and complexity of this field.
Me too. And I think what struck me most is how practical and relevant this all is.
Yeah.
It's not just some abstract theory. It's a set of tools and techniques that anyone can use
Right.
to solve problems and make better decisions.
I completely agree. And, going through these materials has really highlighted a few key takeaways for me.
Oh, I'd love to hear them. What's standing out for you?
Well, first and foremost, I'm struck by the emphasis on holism in business analysis.
Uh-huh.
It's not about looking at things in isolation, but rather understanding how all the pieces fit together.
Right. Like we talk about with the BACCM, it's all interconnected.
Yeah.
Change one thing and it ripples through the entire system.
Right.
You have to consider the needs, the solutions, the stakeholders, the value, the context, the whole web.
Exactly. And that holistic perspective is essential throughout the entire process.
Yeah.
From analyzing the current state to defining the future state to evaluating solutions, it's about seeing the big picture and understanding those interdependencies.
That reminds me of something you said earlier about that company that wanted to implement a new software system but had a culture that was resistant to change.
Right.
You had to consider the human element,
Mhm.
not just the technical aspects of the solution.
Absolutely. And that brings me to another key takeaway, the importance of communication and collaboration.
Yeah.
Business analysts aren't working in a vacuum. They're constantly interacting with stakeholders, gathering information, facilitating discussions, and building consensus.
They're like translators,
Yeah.
bridging the gap between the technical world and the business world, making sure everyone understands each other and is working towards the same goals.
It's a crucial role, and to be effective, business analysts need a unique blend of skills, analytical thinking, problem-solving, communication facilitation, and a deep understanding of both business and technology.
It's a challenging role,
It is.
but it sounds incredibly rewarding.
It is.
And, as we've been talking about all these different tasks and techniques, I've been thinking about how much this aligns with the way we approach problems in our everyday lives.
I was just thinking the same thing. It's not just about business projects, it's about a mindset.
Right?
A way of approaching any situation where you need to understand, improve, or make a change.
Like that idea of breaking down big goals into smaller, more manageable steps. That's something we can all apply to our personal lives, right?
Absolutely. And the emphasis on data-driven decision-making is also incredibly valuable,
Uh-huh.
not just in business,
Right.
but in all aspects of life.
Yeah.
We're constantly bombarded with information.
Mm-hmm.
But taking the time to analyze that information, to look for patterns and insights, can help us make more informed choices.
It's about moving beyond gut feelings and assumptions.
Yeah.
And grounding our decisions in evidence and insights.
Exactly. And, the beauty of all this is that you don't need to be a certified business analyst to benefit from these concepts and techniques.
Right. It's a toolkit that anyone can use to
Yep.
become a more effective problem solver and decision maker.
And I think that's the most important takeaway of all. Whether you're writing on a complex business project or simply trying to navigate the challenges of everyday life, business analysis provides a framework for thinking, critically acting strategically, and making a positive impact.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of business analysis, I want to leave our listeners with a question to ponder.
Okay.
Now that you've glimpsed the power of this field, what are you going to analyze differently?
What systems, processes, or challenges in your own work or life could benefit from a more structured, holistic, and data-driven approach?
We encourage you to explore the full Baybot Guide, the business analysis body of knowledge, to learn more. But most importantly, remember that business analysis isn't just about business.
No.
It's about a way of thinking, a way of approaching the world with curiosity, clarity, and a commitment to making things better.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah.
We hope you've surfaced with some valuable insights and a renewed sense of curiosity about the world around you.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.